Good morning.
Good morning, Pauline.
I am Pauline Graivier from the Dallas Jewish Historical Society, and I have the pleasure this morning, which is July the 10th, 2014, of interviewing Ida Guggenheimer Strasmick and Miriam Vernon, who are sisters and are native Dallasites. And I would like to ask you questions I just want you all to answer whoever feels like it, and anybody else can chime in. So tell me, do you know how your parents got to Dallas, or were they born here, or tell us about your ancestry.
Well, our mother was born in Chicago, and my father was born in Germany. And when they met and married, my father was a traveling salesman, and I think that his territory was down in Dallas and in Texas, and so they moved to Dallas, and my mother was pregnant with me, and so that would have been in 1924 probably. I was born in 1925, and I have to tell you that when they came by train to Dallas, and it was the middle of the summer, and my mother had on a fur coat, not knowing the climate here. And I think she was ready to turn and go back to Chicago
at
that point, but she stayed.
And pregnant too.
Yeah, right.
So were you born here then?
I was born in 1928 in Dallas, and it so happens that we were both born in Baylor Hospital.
That was Florence Nightingale.
No, it was before Florence
It was
Nightingale.
before Florence Nightingale. It was across the street. It was in Baylor Hospital. Florence Nightingale was across the street. It was a much smaller female, whatever you want to call it, hospital. Isn't that right?
I'm not sure.
So tell me something about growing up in Dallas during that era.
Well, at the time we lived on South Boulevard, right across from Temple Emmanuel.
Well, go ahead.
And I went to kindergarten at Temple, and they must have had a pretty good kindergarten, because when I started public school I was double promoted, which made me graduate earlier. Not that I was smarter, but the school was so good.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
Yes. And what about you, Ida? Did you go to kindergarten there?
I went to kindergarten at Temple Emmanuel, and I think I still have my graduation kindergarten picture.
Do?
If you have it and you ever want to donate anything, we have archives here, and we'd love to have anything you have. But that's beside the point. So what was it like growing up Jewish in South Dallas? Did you have a lot of friends?
I didn't know any different. Jewish. Almost everybody we associated with was Jewish. And at Forest High, they had a big percentage of Jewish students. I don't know at that time if I even had any non-Jewish friends.
Maybe not.
Probably not.
And you went to Sunday school at Temple Emmanuel?
Yeah, oh yeah, was confirmed.
So you were walking across the street to Temple, practically?
Well, by that time we may have moved from living right across the street, but
where did
we were always walking distance.
I can remember before that, though, we lived in 3 different apartments on Forest, and I can remember living down across the street from a fire station, or next door to a fire station, and sitting on the bottom stairs, absolutely petrified whenever a fire truck went
yeah,
out.
I remember.
I've always been afraid
Sirens,
of sirens, scared, and I would sit on the bottom steps.
I think you were talking about staying within about a 6-block radius. If you were across the street from Temple Emmanuel, then moving across from the fire station was very close. Now, I don't know your third.
Yeah, I think we lived on Forest first, and then we moved to.
Well, so you had fun. You had lots. You had lots of
yes.
friends.
Oh,
Lots of
I
friends.
remember summers, our activity during the summer was getting together with other little girls and doing our hair. That was entertainment.
I'm not
It was
sure that
fun.
anything's changed.
Imagine kids now being satisfied to do that for summer in their summer vacation. That was it.
That was it every summer?
Well, until we got bigger, I guess. Then we looked for something else.
Then we hung out on the corners with the gang. There were always gangs of kids hanging out on corners.
And our parents were never very concerned about that.
No.
Nobody
Well,
worried about crime.
No, well, you were there at the same time, and you were on Forest Avenue with us. And
Well, not quite. My brother
Yeah.
was, but
Leonard, yes, well, I remember Leonard.
so. Did you ever come across any kind of anti-Semitism at that time, maybe in high school or grade
No,
school?
Not at Forest.
Okay, okay.
Of course,
And
I didn't graduate Forest.
you didn't.
I didn't graduate.
Where did you
from Forest.
graduate from?
After my freshman year, we moved to North Dallas.
And you
And I
graduated from?
graduated Highland Park.
Well, that would have been a place where you could have encountered something.
But we did in Highland Park. Well, I know the Dallas Country Club was very anti-Semitic, but we had a bunch of Jewish
Can you
kids
talk
in
a
our-
little bit louder?
Excuse me. We had a whole lot of Jewish kids in our graduating class at Highland Park. Probably more so than a lot of the classes.
You mentioned Dallas Country Club. What?
Well, the only reason I mention that is because that's where they had a lot of the Highland Park reunions, and a lot of the Jewish kids resented they're having the reunions with all the Jewish kids there, and the Dallas Country Club was anti-Semitic.
Well, they didn't have any Jewish members at that time, or so few.
I don't think
No.
they had any.
There may have been.
So it
Two or three.
felt a little awkward when you walked in?
Mm-hmm. I did. I don't.
Well, I don't think I was in the Dallas Country Club. I
That's the
graduated
only-
from Forest, and we didn't have reunions at the Dallas Country Club.
No, that you didn't, but Highland Park always
Yeah.
did.
Do you ever?
And I was going to say the only reunion I went to there, and it was a very stormy night, and the electricity went out, and I thought, okay, that serves you right. And then it came back on, and when it went out again, and we left. But I said that serves you right for having all your reunions.
So there was a little bit of anti-Semitism
Yeah.
that wasn't overt.
Right.
I don't think there was at Forest.
What was it like at Temple Emmanuel? The rabbi was.
Rabbi Lefkowitz, as I recall.
Mm-hmm.
We went through a few rabbis.
Rabbi Ginsburg.
I don't even remember him.
I think he was there when I was confirmed. I can get out my confirmation picture.
But the head rabbi was Rabbi
Lefkowitz.
Lefkowitz.
Rabbi David Lefkowitz.
Have you seen many changes in the Reformed Jewish communities and services that you grew up with and what exists
Absolutely.
now?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Too many.
It was strictly Reformed then, and I think the services have become more conservative and appeal to the younger people, which is the way it should be, I guess.
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, life goes on and people go
right.
away.
And,
That's true. We're the ones who have to accept it.
Now, tell me, did you all go away to school, or did you stay in Dallas? And why are you back in Dallas to live your adult lives?
Okay.
Miriam or Ida?
The only college I had was in New York at Columbia School of General Studies, and that was just for 1 year.
Columbia School of
General Studies, it was called.
Uh-huh.
And, that was an experience. I moved there because friends, he had been in service, and he was entitled to living quarters, he and his wife. I didn't know that much about New York, and I thought, New York, I'll go to Columbia and it'll be a cinch to get there. Well, they lived in Nyack, New York, which I'd never heard of, but it was quite a schlep to get into the city to go to Columbia, but it was an experience.
An adventure every day.
Yeah, right. And eventually I moved out of my friend's place and moved in with a Jewish family who lived in Washington Heights, and that was more convenient. But it was an experience. And
So you came back here to Dallas?
then I came back to Dallas and went to work.
What type of work did you do?
I worked for an insurance company doing claims adjusting.
And Max, your husband of many years, how did you all meet?
Well, I was going with somebody, and I think he was ready to change girlfriends, and he knew Max, and so he introduced us, and it wasn't love at first sight, but we were very comfortable together, and we went together almost a year before we were engaged. And then we were going to get married, and Max said he had to go to Japan in a month, and he wanted to get married before that. So we had a rushed up wedding, and 5 years later he went to Japan, and I went with him at that time.
So you brought up something very interesting, which was that it wasn't love at first sight. So what happened? Did you grow into that? Because this is an interesting thing. It's not a very Jewish topic, but still, it's maybe an example of growing into love.
Yeah, I think we were probably both ready to get married. We weren't that young. He was 33 and I was 30. At that time, that was old to get married. So I think we were just ready to get married, and we found out we had a lot in common. My father was from Germany, and of course he was from Germany.
He was from Germany?
My father?
Max.
No,
Max. Oh yeah, Max was from Stuttgart.
Oh.
He came over in 1939, and then
Just before.
Yeah, and he served in the U.S. Army, and had a friend who introduced him to somebody in the cotton business in New York. That's where he lived with his family. And in 1949, this company wanted somebody to open the Dallas office, so they sent him down to Dallas. He knew nobody here. And then we met. We were married in 55. So somewhere in between 49, well, we knew each other, I think, a year before we married.
And you met him, and it's very interesting. So he and his family had already moved to the United States. They missed,
yes,
they weren't there during.
Right, they moved here in 39.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's very interesting. And so let me ask Ida now, what's your story
it's
after
not
high
as
school?
interesting as hers.
Well, it's different.
It's different. My college consisted of just one semester at SMU, and I was not college material. So that one semester was enough for me. And then I went to work. I married at 21. I went to college, then I went to work for about a year and a half. And then I got married.
And how did you meet your husband?
Well, our families knew each other. And I hardly knew him. And his aunt, I guess he went into services, was in, let's see.
Was he from Dallas?
No, Oklahoma.
Oh.
Oklahoma. And his Aunt Ray, was she his aunt or just a friend? Suggested he was in service, and she suggested that he was lonely and that she thought it was a good idea that I should start writing to him in service. And that's...
I didn't know that.
You didn't?
No.
You see?
See, I, when you say things like that, I wonder if I know.
So you married and...
I married and moved to Oklahoma.
Oklahoma City?
Ardmore.
Ardmore. So you went to a
Oklahoma.
small town.
I went to a very small town.
Mm-hmm.
And Debbie was born, married in 49. She was born in 56. And we had a jewelry store. Southern Oklahoma's largest jewelry store was Strasmick's Jewelers. And that life in the small town was just really not for me. I always said it was only 100 miles from Dallas.
You always said what?
That it was only 100 miles from Dallas, and that was the only good part about it.
So you came back and forth.
I came back to Dallas.
Without him.
Without him.
Okay.
Yeah. Debbie and I came back to Dallas.
And you've
him.
lived here ever since.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I have worked. I worked for Zell Corporation for 25 and a half years. And then I worked at Temple Emmanuel for 16 years. And then I retired in 03, 11 years ago.
You know, both of you are terrific examples of people who chose to work outside the home in an era where not a lot of women were doing that. They were marrying and staying home, and you are both career women.
Well, I married. I worked until I married.
Mm-hmm.
And then, except for 1 year after we were married, I stayed home.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's fine, but you still worked in the business world, so you have an understanding of that.
Yeah.
Interesting. And you too. But you've been working all along.
I worked a total of about 40.
So what's it like being retired after all those years?
I like it. I'm enjoying it.
What do you think are Were there any challenges that either one of you faced growing up in Dallas? Anything at all that you can think of? What challenges, or can you think of anything exciting that happened to you? What would a terrific evening be like for you, or a day? I'm throwing out a lot.
Way back when?
Or right now, whatever.
Oh.
We can
Well,
talk.
now, a nice evening is probably going out to a nice restaurant for dinner with friends.
Mm-hmm.
And family.
And family, yeah.
Well, you both volunteer at the temple so much, which is wonderful.
Used to, don't so much anymore. But I did yesterday, so for the things for the high holidays. So.
Seems like you're always at a table
Yeah.
registering people, which is lovely, and Max
You have
too.
a good memory.
And Ida, are you volunteering too at the temple as much?
No, they don't call me. No, I used to do Meals on Wheels, and I used to do some volunteer work with the Caring Congregation, but they don't call me anymore.
Well, sometimes they wait to be called, you know.
Well, I have mentioned it to them at temple, I said, you don't call me. Would like to do some volunteer work. So,
I'm glad to see the younger people taking over some of the things that we did.
Well, that is nice too,
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, is there any advice that you would have for people coming into the community?
No. Just
Be active if you want to
meet people.
meet people and just be active in the temple.
Now, you have one daughter, and do you have any children?
One
Mary?
son.
And do either one of them live close by?
Debbie lives here in Dallas.
Oh, excellent.
She is a retired school teacher. She taught for 33 years. She retired very young. And she's a retired school teacher.
Okay, nice. And what about your son?
Our son lived here with his family until about 11 years ago, and he's with Microsoft, and they transferred him to Seattle, so that's where he's lived ever since, and they love it out there. First I thought, oh well, they'll want to come back here if given a chance, but I don't think they will.
Climate has a lot to do with it, too.
Yeah. The rain doesn't bother them. They're outdoor people. They have a lovely home on 2 acres with a beautiful yard and everything. And
grandchildren? Do you have grandchildren?
2 granddaughters, yes. One 24 and one 28 who just became a mother.
Ah, great-grandmother.
Yeah. That's hard for me to say.
Well, going way back to your parents, and where did you said they came from Germany.
My father.
Your father came from Germany. And what about your mother? Do you remember?
She was from Chicago.
No, before that. Her family.
Her family, I remember her mother, I remember my grandmother, and vaguely remember my grandfather.
Any stories about them? When did they come to the United States?
They were both born here.
Okay.
Yeah, both of mother's parents were born here.
Oh,
Our
well.
great-grandmother came from Holland, I think. Our mother's mother came from Holland. But our grandparents were born.
So a
in this
heavy
country.
emphasis on Germany and Holland, and then coming to the United States. Do you remember any family lore, any kind of stories about your grandparents? I'm trying to do this so that your children and grandchildren will be able to
understand that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. But as I say, the only thing I can remember about my grandfather is one time when they were in Dallas and we were living in South Dallas, and he used to walk downtown. Now, is that a fact? He
Well,
used to
very
walk over the
possible. It
Oakland.
wasn't all that far.
Right, he used to walk over the Oakland Street Bridge,
I
Okay.
don't really remember that.
walking downtown.
I can
And
remember
that's-
walking to town from where we lived on Forest. When
On Forest?
lived down the block from where you lived.
That's right. That's right. I don't ever remember walking that far.
But I don't know why I can remember my grandfather walking.
Well, we took the trolley.
It was 3 cents too at that time.
Really?
Yeah.
And it ran right on Forest Avenue, and the little trolley would go by at all hours of the day and night.
And we used to go to the movies, the Majestic and the Palace.
On Saturdays.
Yeah.
Saturday was always downtown. Saturday afternoon in the double feature movies.
And how much was it?
I don't remember, but
I remember the White Theater was 10 cents.
The white was at one end of Forest Avenue, the west
that
end.
wasn't downtown.
no, that wasn't downtown. But I remember as kids that, and I shouldn't say this though, but we would go to the White Theater and we would buy a bag of popcorn, and we'd get down to where it was just almost empty. And then somebody else would take the bag back and ask him to put a little bit more butter in it. And of course he would fill up the popcorn again. And then we'd eat that down, and we really got our money's worth, because the popcorn man was deaf, and he didn't quite understand what we were saying. So we got our nickel's worth or whatever it was.
It wasn't any more than that.
You were naughty girls.
We were bad. Well, I think there might have been some boys in there too.
Okay.
I don't think it was all girls.
Well, you've seen a lot of changes in Dallas. What do you think of what's happened? It's just exploded.
It's just
to my mind.
change.
Yeah,
that's all I
that's
can say is change. And
You don't resist it. You don't like the services at Temple have changed so much. Are you complaining, or are you welcoming it, or somewhere in between?
not welcoming it, but
Yeah.
I don't complain. I mean, 'cause-
Getting more used to it.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I don't complain because I know there's nothing to do about it. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you
I
just
find
accept
we don't
it.
go as often as we used to.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
It is different.
But
it is different.
we
Lots of
also
singing.
don't go, once a month they have the service with the old prayer book.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought, well, we'll always go to that, but we don't.
You mean you're sort of out of the habit?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, I think distance now. You know, when we were in South Dallas, it was much closer and everything, and distances now to go to services.
But do you remember going to services on Friday night
No.
in South Dallas? I don't.
That I don't remember.
That was just it. It wasn't nearly as common to go on Friday nights, it seems like. Of course, we've always had Sunday school.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Well, so you all are, if I can sum it up, you've lived a very good life in Dallas. It has brought you stability and interest, and you went to the movies, and do you remember, and plays and music and the temple, and you built your your lives around social activities and volunteer activities and work activities in your case,
Right.
Ida. Okay. Well, it sounds like a very full life.
Been very satisfying.
Very satisfying.
Never wanted to live anywhere else.
You all seem so compatible. I've always thought there was a great deal of camaraderie between the two of you.
There is.
There is. I can't ever remember any.
Growing up, there was just enough.
I was the little sister.
Yeah, there were 3 years between us, but I was 4 years ahead because of my time at Temple Emmanuel Preschool. But we didn't have the same friends.
We never had any.
We grew up and we appreciated each other.
Because our family was close.
Small.
And and Daddy traveled, as Mary mentioned, a lot, so we always were glad to have him home, and just a very close family when he was there.
And your mother never worked outside the home?
No.
Okay, so it was a traditional type of a family with your father traveling. So he was home on the weekends.
Occasionally he would have to be gone more than a week or two at a time.
Okay.
But
so
basically he was home on weekends.
So a good story.
Just
good story.
Just
A good life.
Average.
A good life. I mean, we never wanted for anything. We were just a very close, good Jewish family. Never really a religious family, but we got the religious education.
Well, talking about a cultural community, cultural Jews, and did you ever have any breakthrough aha moments when it came to your Judaism, when you felt stronger about it?
Maybe on my first trip to Israel, I felt that way.
Who did you go with?
Well, the first trip was with the Temple Choir. And my second trip was with Rabbi Zimmerman.
And why did the first trip affect you that way?
Well, I guess just being for the first time on Israeli soil, and I couldn't get over that everybody's Jewish there. I'd never seen quite as many Jews, and it's just a different culture. It was quite different, and I was proud to be a Jew, and I think I brought some of that back with me.
Good. Okay, that's the type of thing that I'm looking for, and that camaraderie with the Temple Choir. Did you sing in the choir also?
No.
Okay.
No, but I was fortunate enough to make several trips with the choir, because thanks to Miriam and Max.
Talk just a little bit about that. I knew there was something that I wanted to discuss with you, and the experience of singing with the Temple Choir, because it seems to me an unusual social situation.
Well, we're like family. Once you've been in the choir, everybody sort of takes you in like your family. And I don't sing in the choir anymore. I miss it. But
how many years did you sing?
I'd probably join the choir not the first. I wasn't one of the first, but I was with them the first year.
About what year was that?
Well, the choir just had their 60th anniversary, I think.
They just had what?
The 60th anniversary.
60th.
So I must have been in the choir for 50 some odd years.
And what do you mean by family, taking you in? Are you talking about when you would get sick and you...
Well, yeah, that. And when we got together, it wasn't like we were strangers. I mean, we weren't just singing together. We did a lot of things together. We had some wonderful trips, and we had some wonderful choir directors. Sam Adler started our choir, and Simon Sargon was with us many years. And we were just considered ourselves mishpacha, if you know the word.
Yes, I do. That's a wonderful feeling. And you said that you got to go along on some of these.
I didn't sing in the choir, but Miriam was kind enough to include Debbie and me on several of their trips, one to Europe with the choir, and once to Washington, and the third one was...
We went to Washington the year the Holocaust Museum opened there.
So, and I was always, in Europe especially, I was always so proud to be able to sit in the audience and hear this magnificent choir, internationally known choir from Dallas, and here I am sitting in the audience listening to them.
That is pretty darned exciting.
It really was. Just
we needed you in the audience. We didn't always have such a big audience.
Yeah, but Debbie and I were always there with them,
and that is a wonderful feeling to have that. That was your club. That was
right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. I don't know if anybody's ever spoken about that before.